out what you want to achieve with your story. So story tells people that, well, actually, really importantly, it helps people get to know the human face behind your business, but it really gives you a framework for who you are, why your business exists, what you do, and how you help your ideal clients and what tangible benefits they get from working with you. And once you've mapped that out, then you can literally use it everywhere, the entirety on your website, but in so many other places, including on LinkedIn. And you can use pretty much every element of it on LinkedIn, which is why it's so exciting to talk about brand story on LinkedIn.
Yes, I think so too. A lot of people will talk to me about LinkedIn and they just get overwhelmed. They don't really know what they're going to share on LinkedIn. Quite a lot of people have a fear of posting on LinkedIn. I get that quite a lot with my one-to-one clients. They're overwhelmed. They don't know what to post there. They don't really know where to start. And it's because they haven't got a really strategic focus at looking at LinkedIn. But we're not just talking about content here. We're talking about the whole shebang. So when somebody has mapped out their framework and they understand, I know they understand why they're doing what they do, but they maybe haven't thought about it properly. How does that translate into, if, say, we look at somebody's LinkedIn profile, for example. So Sarah is coming to work with you, Lucy. She wants to really look at you and her do a piece of work on her framework. How does that affect how she uses LinkedIn? So let's look at the profile first.
Let's look at the profile. I think the profile is the place to start, actually. Yeah. And just a piece around that, people often make the mistake of trying to do the headline first or the elevator pitch first. So this is something that I find often amongst my clients is people try and first of all come up with their strap line of how they work. But how I really work is getting people to start first with the big picture. And delving into their backstory, their expertise, and what makes them different. And this is where you can really use this on the profile to really tell that whole story. So your brand story, you can literally summarize it on that about or your profile picture, your profile part of LinkedIn, a bit like your about page on your website. So to start by empathizing with your ideal clients, and this is again something I see a lot, whether it's on a LinkedIn profile or whether it's on an about page on a website, people often jump in talking about themselves first.
Big mistake,
and big. If we talk about people feeling overwhelmed and a bit daunted by LinkedIn, I think it's often because people feel it's about them.
Yes.
But if we flip that round, and I said the second party in your brand story is your ideal client, and if you think about your ideal client, what they want to know about you, it makes everything so much easier, and it takes the pressure off a bit, doesn't it?
Yes. Oh, so good that we're on the same page with this. Yes. So, looking at the about section, it's really starting out with what are the big issues that your ideal client has and how you're able to help them with those things.
It absolutely is. And, I always encourage people to approach their profile section in the same way that they would their about page on their website. And that really is by starting off by showing that they understand those challenges. So you've got to know who your ideal client is, and you've got to know.
That's so true.
I mean, that's a really key part of your story as well. I would say, to get hired by your ideal client, you need to know who they are.
Who are they? Oh my goodness, that's so funny. It's funny because it's so true, but this is, people don't think about this. When you talk to someone and say, who do you want to work with? Everybody. Well, the reason you and I enjoy what we do so much, Lucy, is because we work with our ideal clients. So it also actually makes your working day nicer when you're working with the people that you really want to work with. But if you don't know who they are, how can they find you and how can you find them?
It's so true. But, we laugh about it, but it's actually one of the hardest things to crack, I think. And I didn't get to it overnight. I've been running my business 10 years this month. Mm-hmm. And, I came to it with a marketing background and heaps of strategic communications experience, but I didn't get it right to start with. And I think it's so tempting. If you have a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, you want to work with anybody.
Yeah.
And you're scared of turning people away to start with because you might miss out on a shiny opportunity. So it's a hard decision
that's very
to
true.
make.
That is true. Just before we dive into more of this, actually, before we came on, I told you about a book I'm reading, and that's literally what he talks about in the first couple of chapters. It's called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. And he talks about the very, very stressed business owner who's working he says 8 days a week, but working every single day, trying to please all different kinds of people, taking on new clients. It's like a computer software company, taking on new clients who have completely different software needs to his usual clients, and trying to learn how to help them because he's scared about turning away business, and it just leads to stress and exhaustion. And I only niched down into LinkedIn, I would say, in the last 18 months, whereas before I was teaching people all the different social media platforms. And it is exhausting. How can you flip from doing a morning on Facebook training to specializing in Instagram in the afternoon? It's tiring apart from anything. So when you can actually focus on your niche or focus on working with the ideal client and how you're best able to support them, it is a lot easier, I think.
100%. And it's easier for that client to recognize immediately that you help people like them.
Yeah.
I think.
In terms of, so if we look at how does that help you then on LinkedIn, when you understand your brand story, how does that help you to actually market yourself on LinkedIn, do you think?
I think it just, gives you a clear structure and a starting point. So you know who it is that you're talking to. You know what they want to hear from you, and you know what you want to actually achieve from your everything you do on LinkedIn. So you set out your whole story on your about page, and I know that you're sorry, I keep calling it about page, but on your profile summary. And I know, Louise, that you'll be aligned with me on this. That's not your whole life story or your whole career story. It's the very targeted explanation of who you work with, how you can help them, and all the relevant stuff that they would want to know about you. But it really helps you craft the headline piece, but also much more than that. Once you have really mapped out that story framework, then you can think about the expertise that you want to be demonstrating. So it gives you great ideas for your articles.
Yes.
And it also gives you great inspiration for posts that you can share as well, just, shorter form posts, whether that's sharing your expertise in bite size. Some of the slightly more personal things. We know LinkedIn isn't Facebook, but it's still good to give people an insight into who you are as a person, and maybe some behind the scenes stuff for content you're creating, events that you're running, all the stuff that really help people to get to know you as a business owner.
Yes, I love that. And also when you are strategic and approach LinkedIn with your framework and your strategy, it means that people will say, oh, but I did a poll recently about do you like your LinkedIn network, and 52% of people said that they did, which meant that 48% of them didn't. And when I log on to LinkedIn in the morning, and I have, like this morning I had 5 connection requests, and I didn't accept them all because they're not my ideal client. And I think people have an issue with this. I think a lot of people think, oh, I need as big a network as possible. But if you think about it, if you're following what Lucy's saying about having a framework and a strategic approach, and you're sharing your knowledge and expertise to your target ideal client, why would you connect with people who don't fit inside that framework? So I am now assuming, Lucy, that you are quite selective about who you connect with on LinkedIn. Would that be true?
100%. Yeah, I absolutely am. And I totally encourage my clients and other people to do the same. You want your content to be seen by your ideal clients, and you want to be dialogue with the people that you want to work with. So it's not about the vanity metrics. It's not about having all the followers or all the connections. It's about quality, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. In terms of, so you mentioned there briefly about, it's not the posts that you put up. So I call them conversation starters when I'm working with clients. If you think of, what am I starting a conversation about today? And I would be quite interested to hear your take on this. I would see regularly, I would see people who are in a similar, in the independent consultant space, writing very long, elaborate storytelling posts that kind of relate to what they do at the end. And they get a lot of engagement on these posts, but I'm not entirely sure they're actually leading to business. So I'm not sure. Do you recognize the kind of post I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. And, I'm all for the slightly longer posts, but they've got to be relevant. So, the things that I see working well, and I quite enjoy other things. If you're going to be sharing an article or a blog post that you've written, rather than just sort of plonking it there.
Yeah.
Great word, isn't it? I like the approach that is engaging and asking a few questions around that, or maybe pulling out some of the key points from that post. I think is much more engaging than just saying, "Oh, here's my new blog post."
Yes,
it's asking a few questions, giving some highlights, and I like that sort of longer form post. The sort of slightly tenuous story that doesn't have anything to do with business, or the link is very tenuous.
Yes.
No, I'm not so into those. But that might just be me. I'm quite tight precious about the time that I'm.
I think you know. Yeah, I think you and I are quite similar in that. I also think, how long on earth does it take them to come up with this big long story? And why aren't they going and working with clients?
I think it's got to be relevant. If I come back always, as I do, to it's about your ideal client, and if you literally can picture that one person, that represents your audience, just sort of think about them investing, a minute or whatever it is to read that longer story, and just think, is this what they want to hear?
Yes. Is it of value to them? I always think.
Is it of value? Is it going to give them? Are they going to gain something? Are they going to be inspired? Are they going to have learned something by reading it?
Love that. In terms of some people say COVID-19, some people say coronavirus or pandemic or whatever. In terms of the current climate,
whatever we call it.
Do you find, Lucy, have you had a lot of people coming to you and saying, how does this alter what I'm sharing online? Should I be reconsidering my brand story? Do I include the COVID-19 in my 2020 brand story? Or do your clients just not talk about it? Or, how is it impacting the people that you work with and how they are pulling together their brand story?
Yeah, so I think there are very few people who have not been affected by the COVID or Corona situation over the last few years. In the consulting community, I have really seen through surveying my community that the vast majority of people have been impacted. Some, a lot of people have lost clients of some sort. Most have gained new ones, though. lots of people have had to do something slightly different, whether that's with different clients or how they deliver. So back in the early days when things were really unfolding, I had a lot of people saying to me, well, I don't know what